Okay, I'll take the last question. The deforestation in the mined out areas, those are monitored by the Guyana GGMC, which is the Guyana Mining Commission. I'm forgetting one of the words there, but it's GGMC. They're responsible for that particular aspect. What I know that has been done is that, and is being done, is there are some projects looking at revegetation efforts to revegetate the mined sites. My personal view is that miners need to contribute more to the revegetation initiative because they're part of the process. And I think the fees that they have to pay, and I don't know, they may agree with me or not, but the fee that they have to pay, I don't think is sufficient to revegetate areas. So the miners need to work with research institutions and the government to do the relevant research and so on. We also have the what we call the NARI, the National Research Institute here, and they have been working with GGMC and forestry to look at areas of revegetation as well. But more needs to be done. We need more funding. We need more expertise and so on. A lot of the the revegetation efforts have been with sometimes exotic species, and exotic means species not from here. And I am a believer that we should also try with native species. So I like the idea of pushing for using native species, not only in mined out areas, but also in some community lands as well. And communities, and indigenous community people own lands, and sometimes they have degraded their areas as well. And also some of the areas outside of that that need reforesting. If you're practicing good forestry, you don't need to replant. If that this is timber harvesting. We don't replant because there are enough seedlings on the ground to revegetate. So the areas of concern for revegetation would be the mining areas and areas in communities which they have maybe overused, and some have expressed that. That's why I can say that from going to meetings over the years, and maybe some old agriculture areas as well.
Okay. And Sam said, with the high rate of corruption in Guyana, how can we be sure these systems actually work? Can we actually trust these monitors?
I worked at Guyana Forestry Commission, and I can testify to some of the good work that they're doing. Another thing, we're not saying that there's no corruption. There are some, of course, there are levels of corruption, but you have to have proof. If you're going to talk about corruption, you have to have it in your hand. Proof.
Maya,
But
sorry,
yes,
sorry.
yes, but worked at Guyana Forestry Commission. I know their monitoring division is solid, and I know that from working with AWACRAM and doing timber harvesting as well, that our plans and our systems are regularly checked by the Guyana Forestry Commission. So we were checked like 4 times a year, and even though we were certified. So um, and you have to remember too that we have an agreement with Norway at the moment. So the Guyana Forestry Commission is heavily, heavily audited. They're under a lot of pressure. They have international external audits every few months, and
Wow.
they check all of these things as well. I cannot speak for the GGMC because I'm not employed there, but I have a feeling that the GGMC, that's the mining, they have a lot of work to do. That's from
Okay.
looking on. That's my personal view. But they would have to be engaged to get their point of view as well.
Maya said Raquel has so much to teach the world and she is such a great spokesperson. She needs her own website and the multimedia tools needed to produce
That has to be Dr. Maya
high
Trotz.
quality media. You know
That is
Maya.
that is Dr. Maya Trotz, and you need to feature her.
She's coming back soon. I
she
would like to bring her and her dad on
she
at the
will
same
be able
time.
to answer some of your mining and pollution questions.
Rafael said a billion Guyana dollars is about 5 million US dollars. What's the story behind mercury use in mining in Guyana? I'll tell you what. Let's take a
That's a
quick.
question for Maya,
No, no, that's
Dr.
oh, that's a
Trotz.
question for Maya. Well, perhaps Maya can engage Rafael in the chat room, and we can all share in the answer. But let's take a quick break, and yeah, let's just take a break.
Okay.
We're back with Dr. Raquel Thomas. Raquel, before I go to the chat room and read some of Maya's questions, I want you to tell us what is Iwakramo and what is your
Okay. It's long.
involvement?
It's a long. I want to give you the whole thing because I think it's very important because it says what we do. It's the Iwakrama International Center for Rainforest Conservation and Development. Now, in 1989, way ahead of the big 1992 Rio Summit, the late President Hoyt made an offer to the Commonwealth of this space of 1 million acres of forest to be an area for research and development as it relates to conservation and development of tropical rainforests. In 1995, the late President Chedi Jagan continued this legacy, and he signed an MOU with the Commonwealth. And then in 1996, an act of parliament was passed, making the Iwakrama an official center and the area a protected area. So it became the second protected area in Guyana. Can you name the first, Selwyn?
No, I can't. And I'm not embarrassed
Okay,
either. You're here to teach
you
us.
do know it. You know it. It's the iconic Kite National Park.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Yes. And the Kite National Park became a protected area in 1929.
Wow.
Probably one of the first protected areas in South America. So it's very iconic. Yeah, so this was the second protected area. We now have two other major protected areas, the Kanuku Mountains
Mm-hmm.
and Shell Beach area. The Shell Beach is known for the beautiful 4 marine turtles that nest there. The Kanuku is a beautiful mountain range and is known to host a lot of endemic biodiversity species as well. And that's in the Rupununi area. Iwakrama is positioned just north of the beautiful, what we call the North Rupununi area, and is a very important area. So basically, Iwakrama is this place where we do many things. We do research, we work with communities, we work with 16 indigenous communities, and they are our partners, and a very meaningful partner in the way that one of the community members is on our international board. Many of our staff are from the communities as well. They have first preference to jobs as well. And we don't just refer to them as partners, we refer to them as shareholders, as having a share in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
It's primarily the Makushi people. We have 9 indigenous tribal nations in Guyana, the Makushi being one. And we do recognize the 1 million acres of Iwakrama forest as being an ancestral place for the Makushi people. So the act even gives the Makushi people there the rights. They can come in and fish and hunt for subsistence use as well.
Wait,
So that is a very important partnership along with the Commonwealth. But we do have a number of very important partnerships.
let me.
We also, sorry, yes?
No, I was going to say where do you see Iwakrama in 10 years, but continue.
Yeah, just let me just make mention of it is that because this is link into where we see Iwakrama going. We also do business, and one of the things that we do is tourism. We do timber, as we were discussing previously, so we do forestry, and we also do training. So we do training in protected area management. So anything doing like, for instance, collaborative natural resource management, ranger training. We've trained all of our rangers. We've trained most of the rangers in Guyana, actually, in terms of like persons working among protected areas. Many people we've trained. And so we do training as a business as well. And then, of course, we have the research component, and we also have a monitoring component because we have to monitor the area. The area is special. It's a million acres, and there's a public road running through it. I don't know if you're aware of that. The road that goes from Georgetown, what they call the Georgetown Linden Lethem Road, actually passes right through Iwakrama, and Iwakrama was purposely chosen because of that road going to be passing through there. And it takes you to Lethem and to Brazil, to Venezuela as well, if you care to go to Venezuela as well. And then we also are bordered by the Essequibo River and some other rivers. So it gives it public access. So that's why we have to ensure that we monitor that we have a very strong and solid monitoring program so we don't have incursions. So we have some beautiful partnerships with our indigenous communities. We have a beautiful partnership with the police, the GRA. We have MOU with the Ministry of Public Works because they manage the road,
And let,
right?
I want to go to the chat room and get some
Yeah.
questions. And so Maya said, "Where is Guyana on IP issues? Seems as though stories like Green Heart Seed, for example, need further research." Maya again, I meant NGO to monitor. Maya again, I meant NGO to monitor the logging sector, not the gold mining sector. In a country with such a high CPI, one must be skeptical of the Forestry Commission monitoring logs for export. And on the Norway agreement, what's coming for the 10 million USD funding for UG, and how are you involved?
Okay, that's a number of questions. So the first one, she talked about IPR.
I
The IPR issues, I think they're trying to deal on well, let me explain to you from the Iwokrama point of view. First of all, Guyana has no national legislation for intellectual property, and it's an issue, and it's something that we urgently need to tackle. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, are addressing some levels of it. They access to benefit sharing, what they call the ABS policy, that has been done. But there's still a lot of work to be done. We need legislation to protect intellectual property in this country, and not only for science, but also for music and literature and all these other things. And the musicians and the artists would tell you about this over and over again. Iwokrama, because of the lack of IPR legislation, we have developed our own IPR documents. So when we have projects or business projects or any projects that involves benefit sharing with communities especially, we have a document that has to guide us. So for instance, if there's a financial commitment or so on, that outlines to us how we do it. So at the Iwokrama level, we have taken care of it, but at a national level, we have to address it. It's one of the things that is absolutely and urgently needed. There's no national NGO monitoring the Forestry Commission right now, but as I would say, there are a number, every 6 months at least, they have an international audit of the commission, and this is international, it's external. So they are heavily audited. And I know there's a lot of controversy in the news and so on, but there are things that the GFC, of course, needs to deal with. For me, it's the Wamara issue, but they're not the area. The forest is not being deforested, but I think we need to look at the high grading issues. But the Guyana Forestry Commission, and I don't know how they do it with the staff, with the amount of staff they have. They have a lot of audits, and it takes up a lot of their time, these audits as well.
and
Because what it ends up taking away is that they can't do a lot of their other work because they have to be facilitating the audits. But this is part of it. That is our commitment under the Norway agreement. We're also going towards, which is called something called FLECT, which is Forest Law and Governance, and we're getting ready. The government has committed to signing what is called a voluntary partnership agreement, which looks a lot at the exports and where the exports are coming from. So that is something that is also going to add another level of auditing, because that will require external auditors to come in and audit companies and also look at how the Guyana Forestry Commission is performing, because it's an agreement between the government and the European Union. So if I would advise people to check on that as well, something called FLEGT, FLEGT. I think that's the acronym for it as well. The third question, could you remind me?
well, that's the third. That was the third. The first was on IP issues. The
I did
second,
that.
right? The second
So I
was
think,
on NGO monitoring the logging
yeah, I
sector,
addressed that. And I
and the
think there
third
was some
one was
piece.
about the 10 million USD funding for UG, and how are you involved?
The 10 million US funding for UA. Well, my boss, my CEO, he is on the committee that helps to oversee that project. And sometimes I sit on that board, and not very often, but I also I've helped to review project proposals for that project as well. So I don't have an very intensive involvement, but I have on two occasions, reviewed a number of proposals of projects that have come in, because it's really for the university staff and academia to tap into some research funds. But my supervisor, my boss, the CEO of Krama, is on the committee that's managing that particular project.
What do you say to